You're listening to the Free Thinkers Club Podcast Network.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of All Factors Considered. Today we're breaking down UFC 259. This is the preview show. We got 3 title fights. Not 1, not 2. We got 3 of them joints, right? So obviously the main card, we got Yan Blachowicz facing off against Israel Adesanya. Light heavyweight champ in Blachowicz. Middleweight 185 champ in Israel Adesanya. That's going to be a great one. And then, of course, Amanda Nunes is defending her featherweight championship against Megan Anderson, who is the #1 contender, even though we don't really got rankings in that division necessarily in the UFC, but nonetheless. And lastly, we got Petr Yan facing off against Aljamain Sterling. This will be his first title defense in the Bantamweight division. But I can't sit here and I can't talk about all this stuff myself, you know what I mean? I got to bring in my co-host AJ, so let me bring him in. AJ, man, what is going on, dog? I got to ask you a question right off the bat, man. If you didn't have a choice, if you had to answer, would you rather take a kick to the body from Thiago Santos, just, you know what I'm saying, not block and take the kick to the body, or a flush right hand from Amanda Nunes? Gun to your head, what do you choose?
I'm taking the sleeper from Amanda Nunes. I don't want that repercussive damage from the Santos body kick, my man. That's internal bleeding. What about you?
I feel you. And you know what, man? I actually went the other way. I said, give me the kick from Santos because I do not want to eat no right hand from Amanda Nunes, man. She going to put you to sleep. I don't need no brain damage. Maybe a little, you know, my liver might be messed up a little bit. I might be pissing blood or whatever, but I need that brain. You know what I'm saying? That's what we do best here on this show. But nonetheless, man, listen, you know, we got a hell of a card to break down right here, man. And it doesn't even make sense to sit here and to mince any words. Let's just get straight into it if that sounds cool to you, man. So let's jump straight into the sleepers, AJ. I'm going to start the clock and let's rock, man. You go first. Who's your first sleeper for UFC 259?
Thank you very much, Derek. And my first sleeper is Sean Brady versus Jake Matthews, okay? A little underknown people, but Sean Brady, he's undefeated and still young in the game, okay? This is going to be his biggest test so far, and he's had one pretty notable win against Court McGee. Watch out for Sean Brady's left hook because his boxing is very solid and his wrestling is pretty underrated. Now, Jake Matthews beat up my boy Diego Sanchez in his last fight and showed he has a very stiff right hand and is all around a good fighter. Very high fight IQ. And my only critique for him is he wasn't able to put his opponents away when presented the opportunity. Now, this is a sleeper to me because Matthews is one hell of a fighter. And if he can't hurt Brady, Brady's going to hurt him. And either way, we're in store for a very quick match from Brady or a well-rounded, methodical clinic from the outside from Matthews. However it unfolds, it's going to be one hell of a fight. Who you got, Derek?
Well, first, I agree, man. Sean Brady is such a stud, man. And Jake Matthews, that's going to be a big test. But, you know, this is the turning point. Let's see, man. You either take the next step or, you know, Matthews would be too much. But we'll see. So my first sleeper, man, is going to be some people that I don't think too many people know about, man. So I got Kennedy Zinchenko facing off against Carlos Ulberg. And this is at light heavyweight, man. And the reason why this is a sleeper to me is because these are two giant, you know what I mean, individuals. Like, these dudes are literally giants in the ring, man. So Zinchenko is sitting at 6'5" at 28 years old with an 83-inch reach. And just for reference, John Jones, who had like the craziest reach in the light heavyweight division, John Jones' reach was at 84.5. So this is basically John Jones level reach right there. And Carlos Ulberg, this dude's a former professional boxer. He's a former kickboxer, and this dude's kicks are absolutely no joke, man. He's a counter striker all day. He's 3-0 as a kickboxer with 3 knockouts, man. So this is power versus power. Huge dude in Zinchenko who's gonna walk you down versus, like I said, Ulberg, who is sitting there waiting to pick his shots and to knock you out, man. He has a very impressive win over Bruno Oliveira, who he knocked out with punches at Dana White's Contender Series, and that dude was like 8-0 at the time. So nonetheless, Ulberg has a 6-inch reach disadvantage, which is why this fight is going to be such a crazy sleeper. Tune in, folks. It's free. It's on the undercard. You know what I'm saying? Come on, let's rock. AJ, who you got next, man?
Next up, Derek, for my sleeper, I got Joseph Benavidez versus Askar Askarov. Now, Joseph Benavidez, he's been in the game for a long time, but he's lost his last 2 fights to the champ Figueiredo. But Benavidez can fight, man. He has his only critique that I ever see, and this is a weird one for the weight division because he's fighting at 125, but he doesn't have the biggest of gas tanks. He's a very fast starter, but then can wane towards the end of the fight. Now, Askarov, he's been on a tear lately, okay? But he's not leaps and bounds above the rest of the division, so he can find himself in tricky situations. Now, this is a sleeper to me because in the general MMA fandom, they've forgotten how badass Benavidez can fight. And this is the perfect opportunity or a perfect opponent to show those talents. Now, that being said, Askarov is extremely talented and can make this a very long and bloody match, which we all love to see. Who's your second, Derek?
Right on. Well, my second and my final sleeper, since this is a pay-per-view, we're only going to go two apiece. I'm going with some bantamweights, man. I'm going number 14th ranked Song Yadong facing off against Kyler Phillips, man. And the reason why this is a big sleeper to me is because Song Yadong is this kind of heralded, 23-year-old in the UFC who's 5-0-1. Dude's got a lot of experience. He's coming off a win against Chito Vera, which is disputed. I will say I'm disputing that one. I don't know how much of a win that really was. But nonetheless, man, Kyler Phillips is this young up-and-coming prospect, man. He's looking to actually break through with this fight. Now, Kyler Phillips, this is the real reason why it's a sleeper, because I'm such a big fan on this guy. He got spinning elbows, flying knees, spinning back kicks, whatever it is, you name it, man. Welcome to the Matrix. This dude's nickname is the Matrix, and he's a Dakota Kai black/red belt, man. And I don't know if you know what Dakota Kai is, but this is this mixed martial arts discipline that was created by the Grandmaster Hanshi Niko, which is more or less mastering the art of boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, kabuto, and judo, man. So this dude is like the second to the highest absolute rank in Dakota Kai, which is why it'll be interesting, man. So like I said, he can get it done in a lot of places, but Song Yadong, this dude's hands are lightning quick, throws punches in bunches, he's strong, and he's got a crazy gas tank, man. So this is actually early, you know what I mean, surprise here, or spoiler alert, this is one of my fight of the night right here, you know what I'm saying? But listen, man, let's get straight into, this card. We got a lot to break down, man. So let me take off these sleepers really quickly and get into that main card. So we're going to start off with the light heavyweight contest. And let me bring you in here, AJ. There we go. Bow. We're going to start off with the light heavyweight contest. And we got Thiago Marreta Santos facing off against Aleksandar Rakic, man. This is number 2 versus number 4 in the light heavyweight division. And I guess the first question that I have for you, AJ, is Thiago Santos being counted out, man? This dude's entering as a plus 130 underdog versus Rakic. I know Santos, he's coming off 2 losses, but those 2 losses were to Glover Teixeira and John Jones. So we shouldn't really be discounting the man like this. Give me your first impressions of this fight, man.
Well, the fact that he came in at such an underdog was kind of surprising to me because, like you said, Glover Teixeira, John Jones, like, what are we really counting against this guy? You know what I'm saying? Especially in the John Jones fight, blowing out your knees, coming back a year later to fight Glover Teixeira. And the only real reason, I mean, he did lose that fight by rear naked choke, but I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that he was off an injury and really only wrestling for 4, maybe 3 or 4 months. You know what I'm saying? But it's surprising to me because he's such an underdog. But I think what did that is his wrestling was exposed. And I think that's really where it comes down to. I'm kind of surprised about that whole fact, to be honest with you, Derek. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat, but then it makes sense a little bit to me just because, okay, let's look at these 2 huge explosive guys, right? Santos is 6'2", Rakic is 6'4", but here's the big difference. Rakic is 29, Santos is 37. So when you think about that and you're like, all right, man, well, when I was looking at the odds, when I was doing our episode of All Bets Aren't Created Equally, equal this week, the odds for both of these fighters to knock each other out is the same. So what that tells me, the odds makers are saying, like, listen, man, if this goes to a knockout, man, anything can happen. But if it goes past a knockout, we think Rakic with the, he's a little younger, a little more youthful, a little more powerful, you know what I mean? He might be able to get it done. Now, I will say Thiago Santos, he had noted that the loss against Glover Teixeira shouldn't count. Obviously, it counts on the record. But he was saying that was really my warm-up, man. Coming off of an injury, coming off of a big layoff, it's to be expected, right? There's a lot of fighters who they don't look their sharpest. Look at Mackenzie Dern. When she, it wasn't an injury, but after she had her baby, right, she came back and fought and looked not very great. And then she came back after that, and it's like she kind of got back into that groove and was like, all right, now I'm ready to rock. Now I'm really, you know what I'm saying, ready to make this happen. But nonetheless, man, I think that this is going to be an interesting matchup because at the end of the day, man, Santos has 15 knockouts. He's only been knocked out 3 times. Rakic has been knocked out never, and he's got 9 knockouts, man. But when we're going into the X's and O's, man, in the stand-up, who wins this in the stand-up, man? Because I was trying to think to myself, man, if this is going to be an in-the-middle war of wars, someone's got to win. And I'm really not sure who it is. So I would really like your opinion, AJ. What do you think? Who wins the stand-up battle in this one?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I think that's actually why the matchmakers made this fight, because they're both amazing in the stand-up, both very powerful athletes, and not necessarily as proficient as the rest of the division on the ground. I mean, we saw in Thiago Santos' last fight, Glover Teixeira just basically owned him on the ground, didn't let his back get off of it. And then in Racic's last fight with Anthony Smith, when he was able to hurt Lionheart, the only reason Lionheart survived is because he started wrestling. Yep. So I think the matchmakers knew exactly that and wanted to put 2 crazy strikers to sit there and stand and bang. Now, who has the advantage? Personally, I think it's going to be Santos. Personally, I just think he's been doing it longer. He knows a little bit more. He's able to break down the game a little bit. And when you're striking with another striker, it's more like chess than it is a crazy tornado chaos. You're actually, feinting, seeing these openings, doing little movements to see what your reactions are to the opponent. And I think Santos has just been doing it longer, as well as he has a little bit more of a chip on his shoulder with, like you said, that was his warm up. He wasn't necessarily feeling like he's back in the swing of things. He's actually getting there now with a young and up and comer like Rakic. I think he has the opportunity to display that he's still above and beyond. What do you think?
Well, you know what's interesting, man? I'm thinking that, so in terms of the stand-up, right, I think this could be very similar to the fight that we just saw, the Magomed Ankalaev versus Nikita Krylov, right, where we didn't see the explosiveness that we normally see from two of these guys because both of them were like, damn, I'm not trying to get knocked out right now. But the question is going to become who's going to take the ultimate risk. And in my opinion, it's the saying that we have in MMA, right? Wisdom sometimes makes you tentative, you know what I mean? Sometimes being wise isn't the best thing to be in the ring. Sometimes you need to have that kind of ignorance is bliss mentality and not be afraid to go and get knocked out. So what the last thing we want, we've already seen it, Marreta, he comes in there, he says, I'm ready to die. Dude was like a paratrooper or something like that before he was a fighter. So he's like, I'm ready to go in there and I'm ready to die. I'll tear up all my kneecaps and whatever the case may be. It don't matter. But listen, I think that what this is really going to come down to is this could come down to the clinch. And if it comes down to the clinch, I'm expecting big knees and elbows from Rakic, man. I think Rakic just got a little more power. I personally think that, and I think that with the youth and whatnot. So, I mean, ultimately, let's get down to it, man. This is a striking contest, and we know what it is. Who's your pick and why?
Well, Derick, I think, like you said, it comes down to a striking match. But actually, I had this question for you. Do you think we're going to see that stand and bang that everybody's expecting? I think it's going to be a little bit more of a mix-up. And personally, because of that, I'm going Santos with the KO round one because I don't think the strikers are going to be sitting there staring in each other's mirrors and making it a long, drawn-out fight, a chess match. I think it's going to be crazy off the jump. I think Santos is going to come out warmed up, ready, going at the first, and I think he's just going to try to put it to him because the longer it does go, the more it leans to that youth. And the more pressure they have, the more it leans to that clinch. And I agree that Rakic has the advantage in the clinch. He's just a little faster, a little bit more explosive. Where Santos, man, he's just time-tested and proven. And I genuinely think that fast output in the beginning is going to lead to a KO round one. What do you got?
Well, you know what, man? I can't sit here and I can't disagree with what you're saying because that's a very likely outcome. It could totally happen. If we've watched these fighters before, they like to come out hot. But that's the thing, man. That's why I keep saying I really think this is going to be much more of a Magomed Ankalaev versus Nikita Krylov type of fight. And if we remember what happened in that fight, it was a lot of clinch work, right? It wasn't just standing up all the time. You have to negate the power somehow, some way, man, when two dudes don't want to get knocked out. And both of these dudes have been fighting nothing but power punchers. But when we look at Thiago Santos, man, in his last three wins, they're all by knockout. When we look at Rakic, his last couple wins or whatever the case may be, he's got 3 wins, or he's got 2 wins by knockout and 2 wins by UD, man. So he has what it takes to go to the judges, but we got to watch out for that gas tank. So long story short, man, I'm going to go Rakic because I'm going with the youth advantage, man. And I just think sometimes, man, it's tough. Thiago Santos coming off the injury and whatnot, man, he might be motivated. He might be ready to make it happen, but he might not be. And I guess that's the MMA game that we play here, man. So let's move on to the next one, man. So pull this main card back up, Bow, and then let's get Islam Makhachev versus Drew Dober, man. Now, we need to talk about the odds first, man. Islam Makhachev, last time I checked, was a minus 400 favorite, so a lot of people are not pulling for Drew Dober here. Drew Dober was a plus 280 underdog, and the story here is the wrestling, man. I honestly think that's the story. I think the stand-up is the stand-up, right? I think Drew Dober's best path to victory is his Muay Thai. He is a former 2-time amateur Muay Thai champion, but nonetheless, man, we just talked about it in the last fight. When you're a great striker, you can totally be a great striker, and that's totally cool. But if you can dictate where the fight's going to take place, you control the fight. And if you can wrestle, like Islam Makhachev, who is, you know what I mean, the protege to Khabib, he's heralded as being the next Khabib. It might get ugly. So, AJ, man, do you think that Islam Makhachev is the next Khabib? Do you think that Drew Dober is going to have, what are his chances of winning this fight? You know what I mean? Because, like I said, the betting line doesn't look too good for him.
Yeah, I agree, Derick, in the fact that they're training together and they have all this stuff, but I don't agree in the fact that Makhachev is the next Khabib. They're completely different fighters. And yes, he is another Dagestani savage, and they do train together, and I'm pretty sure they're cousins, and the media has been hyping it up that he's the next thing to hit this 155-pound division. But Islam is a lot more well-rounded. and a lot less experienced than Khabib. He's very fast. He hits very hard here, and he is a combat sambo world champ. So the ground and pound is there, but he hasn't fought since 2019. As well as I think he's genuinely underestimating the wrestling of Dober, because Dober, he's working out of Elevation Fight Team. So Gaethje's there. I just blanked the coach's name.
Trevor Whitman.
Yeah. Trevor Whitman's working that ground game, man. Because Islam Makhachev's wrestling is so high and so leaps and bounds above the rest of the division, because he's training with Khabib and AKA, that's what they're working, because Dober's hands are there. And I think one of the biggest things that is leading Dober a little over the fence, for me at least, is the fact that A, Makhachev is underestimating his wrestling, but B, Dober has found that love for that grind that has been coming to the fight game. He's no longer necessarily worried about wins or losses, and he's already had a couple, 9 losses in his fight career, and he started to learn. You've seen it in his last 3 fights, learn to find that love again and find that flow state. Which when you're in that flow state, we've seen it with Adesanya, we've seen it with Blessed Holloway, we've seen all these fighters, even Wonderboy Thompson, when they're in that flow state, whatever the opponent wants to do isn't happening, man. You're just controlling it. You're just flowing with things. You're letting the waves come and crash as they should. And you're basically doing that Jet Li. You're being like water, and you're transforming the fight. And I think that's the one key where Dober is going to have to control and maintain and actually invest time in, is letting things happen as they should and being okay with the ebb and flow of the fight game and capitalizing on the opportunities that present themselves when Makhachev does allow for them. What do you think?
Well, listen, man, that was a great spiel, man. Flow state, all that good stuff. Be like water, shout out, man. But guess what? It's hard to be like water when you fighting a dude like Islam Makhachev, who ain't gonna let you get into any flow, any rhythm, because he's gonna grab you and he's gonna put you on the ground. Here's the thing about Islam Makhachev that really stood out to me. When he fought Arman Sarukian, who is an incredibly high-level prospect, who was the first dude in Islam's entire career to take him down, right? When that happened, guess what, man? You know what I'm saying? It's like, all right, now, I think that's how this fight is going to play out. It's going to be more like Islam Makhachev versus Arman Sarukian, and I think this is going to be like Drew Dober versus Beneil Dariush. So when you saw Drew Dober try to deal with a wrestler like Dariush, a BJJ black belt like Dariush, it was ugly. The sprawls, it wasn't that great. He got caught in some type of arm triangle. I don't know exactly what it was. I can't remember off the top of my head, but nonetheless, Islam Makhachev has that incredible balance, man, and he has a knack for not going down. Like, if you saw how much energy was wasted, or not wasted, but was exerted by Sarukian in that fight just to get Islam down, you know what I mean? When he's got great balance and sprawls and all that good stuff, man. I just think it's easier said than done, and I think that Drew Dober is going to use a lot of gas trying to take, Islam down. I think his best bet is through the Muay Thai, and it's going to be hard to do the Muay Thai when Islam says, I'm going to throw a high kick to your head, and then I'm going to grab you, and I'm going to put you up against the cage, and I'm going to start using trips and foot sweeps and get you on the ground. Top control and the fight. That's generally speaking the name of the game for Islam. So I just think that if people couldn't stop Khabib with that same exact approach, man, I'm not saying that Islam Makhachev is Khabib, but knowing that he has the validation and he has that approval of Khabib really speaks volumes. But nonetheless, this is ultimately what it comes down to, man. This is a striker versus grappler, and there's no other way to really go about this. But I will say this, man, if we're looking at Islam Makhachev's long layoff since 2019, man, I think it's been injuries and it's been people not wanting to fight him. I think that's been a mixture of those two, and they're saying Islam Makhachev only needs one more win to be in contention for a title shot. So this might be it right here. Who's your pick and why?
Well, Derek, I agree with you. I think it is a lot harder or a lot easier said than done when you're going up against Makhachev. But I think one of his gifts is also one of his downfalls because, like you said, he's not Khabib. He's not super focused on taking you down and beating you up on the ground. He also has these kicks. He also has the striking. And to me, in my mind, it comes down to more of, would you rather be full-assed on one thing or half-assed on 10 things? Now, personally, I think that was what has led Khabib to his domination, is being so intently focused on one aspect that you're making all the other aspects almost null and void in your opponents. Where Makhachev, he's so talented in all these things. It's weird to say that your talent is your downfall, but I think he's so talented that he's underestimating Dober. And that's why I'm going with Dober, a KO round 2. I think they're going to wrestle it out. I think things are going to unfold as it should. And once Dober is able to see that he's not, or that he is in the fight, he's gonna go for the kill, man. And I think it's gonna be a Dober KO round 2. Who you got?
Well, I will agree with you that Drew Dober is being very underestimated in this fight. I will totally agree with you on that one. And one thing that people aren't taking into consideration is that Drew Dober, he has 6 submission wins under his belt. And one thing that Islam Makhachev does all the time is he exposes his neck. But guess what? When Makhachev fought Nick Lentz, and Nick Lentz, who's got the craziest guillotine in the game, and Makhachev was able to fight off all of those guillotines, what makes you think Drew Dober is a better submission artist than Nick Lentz? I mean, it's really, really hard to make that argument, and I won't, because you got to give respect to Nick Lentz. Shout out to the now retired Nick Lentz. But nonetheless, man, I'm going Islam Makhachev, man. I just think the wrestling is too much. I super highly favor great wrestlers. And sometimes, that's the downfall. When I picked Kevin Kroom, I thought he was going to be able to just wrestle up Alex Caceres, but it didn't happen. So if Drew Dober could really work that takedown defense, man, that'll be very impressive. But like I said, Islam Makhachev, he takes everyone down and he rarely gets taken down. So I'm going to go Makhachev decision win. Now let's move on to the next one, man. Let me get you back up in here, man. So this is interesting, man, right? Petr Yan versus Aljamain Sterling. What we have is we have a boxer. We have an Eastern European styled, great footwork boxer in Yan versus a dude who is just trying to put the backpack on you, submit you. He set his game plan from the jump. And this is the thing about it, right? It's kind of like Curtis Blades, who was all like, all I need is that takedown and you're done, Derek Lewis. Well, guess what? Sterling is saying, all I need is that takedown and you're done, Petr Yan. Well, we saw what happened in that Curtis Blades Derek Lewis fight, and I'm not saying this is the same exact thing because this is a very close to a pick-em, man. Last time I checked the odds, Petr Yan was -115, Aljo was at -110, so it's like this can go any way, but I think that Aljamain, obviously, his best path to victory is wrestling and submissions, and for Petr Yan, man, I think his style very much lends to 5-round fights, man. I think him being the champ right now is actually very favorable for him because his style is to break you down methodically over 5 rounds, use that gas tank sparingly, fight off the takedowns, and just walk you down and throw them punches up on you, grab you, top control, ground and pound. That's the name of the game for Petr Yan. Now, give me your argument for what Aljamain Sterling can do to win this fight. What's your argument?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, Derek, for the most part, because you're right. Yan has that tried and true method. Beat you up. His boxing is impressive. He's going to beat you up over 5 rounds, keep the pace going. And one of the most impressive things that I see in Yan is his footwork, man. I'll get into a little bit when we talk about him. But as far as Aljo Sterling, I think what benefits him is he has 2 paths to victory, not just one. When what most people think he's going to do is stay on the outside, maintain that reach, kick you in, kick you far, kick you in the leg, kick you in the head, just basically control the outside range and piece you up and counter strike. It can happen. We've seen it happen before. Jimmy Rivera, he maintained the thing. And he also has a ground game where he can control you on the ground. Now, personally, what I think needs to do is surprise Yan. Get on the inside. Because everybody thinks Aljo is going to stay on the outside, maintain distance. But what he needs to do is get on the inside where Yan is his most dangerous. Yan is very dangerous, and he can hurt you anywhere that he can touch you. And if Aljo is able to get on the inside, not necessarily put the backpack on him and throw him down and make it a wrestling match, but hurt him and then beat him up. Because everybody knows Aljo's a great wrestler and he's going to put that backpack, go for the submission. I think Yan's been working that. So we got to show Yan something that he's never seen, something that is, like I said, going to surprise him and hurt him. And the longer the fight goes for Aljo, the better it looks. Or the longer the fight goes, the better it looks for Yan. So Aljo really needs to piece him up, really needs to hurt him in the beginning, and either choke him out while they're still dry and sticky, or not get hurt and put on a striking clinic and win by points. Because I think if he goes to the long distance, man, it's going to be hard for him because Beyond is one hell of a striker. What do you think?
Well, you absolutely hit it on the head. I can't really say anything that's better than what you just said about Aljamain Sterling's approach to victory. But when I was interviewing Cody Freeman, check it out, folks. We have it on the Free Thinkers Club page. It's on audio and video and all that. But when I was interviewing him, I asked him about this, and he says he thinks Aljamain Sterling submits Petr Yan in the 3rd round. And the reason why is because if he was able to put the backpack on Corey Sandhagen and fight through, Corey Sandhagen arguably can be considered a better striker than Petr Yan, and arguably he's a longer reach. He's just a lengthier dude. So Aljo had to fight past that length to get on the inside. Petr Yan, he's going to be there every single time. He doesn't have that length to pass by. So what he was saying is that Aljamain Sterling, he might, or Yan might defend maybe 2, 3, 4 takedowns, but as that fight keeps going on, man, it only takes one. And it only takes one, and it's really tiring fighting a dude just trying to wrestle you all day long. We saw it in the Caceres fight. He was gassed too just from fighting takedowns. But when we're talking about Petr Yan and his methods of victory, man, if he can just stay away from the takedown, man, I don't see what Aljo can do on the feet just strictly on the feet in terms of boxing, I'm not sure what he can do to kind of get that dub. But ultimately, what it comes down to is that Petr Yan, man, he's never been submitted. So that's one of these things where everyone's saying Aljo is just going to submit him like that. I'm like, dude, he does have 8 submissions under his belt, yes, and that is very impressive. But Petr Yan, he hasn't been submitted. But here's the question that I have for you, man. In terms of Petr Yan, people are basically talking about how dominant he is and things of this nature, right? But another thing is, like, there's been these talks by Dominic Cruz saying that Petr Yan actually got gifted the belt because who did he have to fight for the championship? It was a vacant championship, and he fought Jose Aldo, and he got that. And who did he fight before that? Uriah Faber. There's been a lot tougher, paths to get that belt than Petr Yan has gotten. That's why it's easy to get it, but it's hard to keep it. So what do you think about that? Do you think just the experience and the killer's row that Aljamain Sterling has fought in his last 5 is going to lend to him maybe having an advantage in this one?
I think Dominic Cruz is a little salty. That's what I think on that one right there, Derek. Because sure, yeah, I agree. The path to victory has been a little easier than you would want to see Petr Yan have, especially only because if it's a little harder, then it's a little more solidified. So it's pretty easy. Jose Aldo, like you said, a little bit past his prime. Same thing with Uriah Faber, a little bit past his prime. But he also fought Jimmy Rivera, who we saw have a really good match just recently. And then another argument for you is John Dodson, a little bit past his prime on that one. So it is a little weak as far as the experience factor. But I think, man, I don't know if that experience factor actually plays in because Petr Yan's been doing it for a while, man. He's been knocking people out for a long time, and that boxing is very fierce. You mentioned a thing earlier that I wanted to touch on, and where Aljo has an advantage is the length. Everybody says he's outreaching him. He has a longer reach by 67 to 71. So right there, 5-inch reach. He has that, but where Yan makes up for it is that footwork that I was talking about. I learned something new, and I thought Vanderlei Silva was the one who brought this to MMA. And and just fighting in my own, I've learned that when you can switch stances and carry your feet, you carry power in both hands. Now, this is exactly what Petr Yan does, and it's very European style of fighting. And I learned that it's called a Fitzsimmons or a Ketchel shift. Mm-hmm. I had no idea that this was made popular back in the 30s with actual boxing, where you just step through and keep going. You know what I'm saying? But Petr Yan does this so perfectly that he makes up for that reach by just carrying his feet through. And it's very Justin Gaethje-esque, where he can hit you hard on the outside as well as hurt you on the inside. So if Aljo is going to be looking for those takedowns, if he's going to be looking for the outside range, I think he's in danger in both. I think he's in danger in the entire fight. And I think that's where Petr Yan's path to victory lies, is that no matter what Aljo does on the feet, he has an answer for it. Now on the ground, we're going to see it, but Petr Yan does have very good takedown defense as well as good hips. You see a lot of throws coming for him, and you see a lot of sprawls. So this is a fight for me where it's really a pick'em. I can see it going either way, and I absolutely have no idea how it's going to go, even though I've done a lot of breakdown for both fighters, man. What do you think?
Well, I'm really glad that you pointed out that shifting of his footwork, because that is what he does to make up, and he travels distance very, very quickly because, yeah, he throws the left, switches over to the right, might use it as a feint to bring it back over to the left, and it's interesting because it's also a variation. It's a more modern variation, but the custom auto shift that Mike Tyson implemented a lot in his fights. It's more or less the same thing, except they're using the more European style to travel distance when Tyson is leveraging for power on both hands, right? So I learned that one, what you were talking about, by watching Dan Hardy's War Room when he did a breakdown on the fight, and he was talking about that, and it's a really good series, folks. I would definitely, even if you're not the biggest fight fan in terms of the X's and O's, you should check it out because it's very helpful breakdown to see the inner mechanics from a dude who, had a great career in the UFC. Nonetheless, yeah, man. So ultimately, once I'm completely with you, I think it is a pick-em, man, and it's really hard because it's like, what does it look like if you have a champion that's just changing hands every time they fight the belt? You know what I'm saying? Like I just think at a certain point, man, Petr Yan, he's going to have to really and prove to the fans and prove to everybody in the Bantamweight division that he's legit and that he's an actual tried and true champion. So, I'm going to go Petr Yan, man. I'm going Petr Yan, and I'm actually going to go a decision win, man. I think that this is going to go 5 rounds, and that's why I'm going Yan, is because I think that's what his fight style lends to. If you look at his last 5, TKO in round 5 versus Jose Aldo, which goes to show he translates that power over 5 rounds. KO 3 Faber, unanimous decision versus Rivera, unanimous decision versus Dodson. That goes to show this dude's gas tank is legit. Those dudes all are, high-paced fighters. So that's my pick. Who are you going and why?
Yeah, Derek, I'm right in line with you on this one, man. I'm going Yan by decision just because I think his one path to victory and gas tank and all the things we've been talking about lead him just a little bit more favorable in my mind. I really, like I said, I think this can be a pick 'em. I won't be surprised at all if we get upset in this pick, but I'm going Yan by decision just off of history, man.
Yeah, you got to, man. Sometimes it's like you got to be careful picking the underdog every single time or picking the dude who's the challenger every single time, because there is something special too about you're walking out knowing you're the champion. You got that target on your back, and you really better be ready to bring it. These two have been jawing at each other too, so it'll be a fun one. Now let's knock out this next one, man, and it's unfortunate because I don't. I want to make an argument for Megan Anderson in this fight, man. The odds are ridiculous. Amanda Nunes minus 1,400 favorite. Megan Anderson 6 feet tall, 72-inch reach. Megan Anderson is a plus 675 underdog. So, folks, if you got $20 lying around, man, go throw that on that plus 675 just to see. MMA is not a certain thing, man. Anything can happen in this sport. But let's make an argument for Megan Anderson, right? She's arguably the first true heavyweight, true featherweight that Amanda Nunes has ever fought, right? When she fought Cyborg for featherweight, Cyborg was a bantamweight who went up, right? When she fought, who was before that? Holly Holm, right? Holly Holm went up. Those aren't real featherweights, man. This is the first fighter with a frame like Megan Anderson that Amanda Nunes has ever fought. So let's make an argument for Megan Anderson first, man. How does she get it done if she were to get it done versus Nunes on the feet and keeping it on the feet? How does she get it done?
I like what you said because she is a true 145er, and I think that's one of her biggest aspects. She's very strong, very long for the division, and she hits hard. Her downfall is her ground game, so she has to really focus on staying on the feet. Now, I think that's her only path. And I was actually writing this up, man. I had some kind of feeling that this might go another way. We might see an upset here. But if Megan Anderson is able to keep things calm, not get drawn into a dogfight, and use that range that she has, utilize the clinch but not get taken down, hit her with those knees, keep things at distance. And if Megan Anderson has gotten better at placing her shots, I think she can do real damage to Nunes, especially because Nunes hasn't fought in quite a long time. And this is one hell of an uphill battle for Megan Anderson. I won't lie. This is almost like who's going to pick Megan Anderson after the GOAT has just been running things for the last however many years. But I think if Megan Anderson is able to stay calm and not get hurt, not get drawn into the fact of all the chaos that's going to happen that Amanda Nunes brings to the fight, because she does, man. She hits hard and she's very fast and brings a lot of chaos. I think if Anderson can control herself and just worry about herself, she'll have a little bit easier path to victory. What do you think?
Well, I think that and here's the thing, because I'm with you, right? I was really thinking, I was all like, this could totally go another way, and we could totally be those people talking about like, damn, how did I not see this coming? How did I not see, you know what I mean? With the frame that Megan Anderson has, I'm really worried about Amanda Nunes really likes to level change, and she likes to go in and shoot in, grab you up against the clinch, and then use foot trips and try to put you down or whatever. But Megan Anderson has 3 arms basically with those knees, man. Her knees are coming up to your face. She's 6 feet tall. She's my height, dude. Like Amanda Nunes is, let's see, she's 5'8", so she's got 4 inches on her in terms of height, and she has 3 inches on her in terms of reach, because Anderson has a 72-inch reach and Nunes has that 69-inch reach. So one thing that Nunes uses a lot to control her opposition that I don't know if she'll be able to use in this fight is the jab, man. How are you going to out-jab somebody who's going to, you know what I'm saying, who's got that crazy reach on you, who can just, if she can keep popping it out. Listen, excuse my language, man, but back in the day, my OG7, he told me that jab, that left hand, that's called the bitch get off me. You know what I'm saying? Every time, just get off me. You know what I'm saying? And if Megan Anderson can keep that one going in there and she can stay away and keep her distance at range, that's really what it comes down to, man. She has to stay at distance. She has to stay at range. If she gets caught up in the clinch, use the knees, use the elbows. But at the end of the day, Amanda Nunes is, because Megan Anderson is so tall, she's actually going to have an advantage in the clinch because her head is going to be right there in Megan Anderson's chest, and she's going to be able to control where she's going to go. So I'm very much with you. I think it has to go on the feet. I personally do not see Megan Anderson winning this fight if it goes to the ground, especially if Nunes can get her on the ground early, like second round, and then just kind of steamroll her like she did to Felicia Spencer or, you know what I mean, Jermaine Duran to me, right? But so this is my take on it. I think that a moral victory, a big win for Megan Anderson is going the distance with Amanda Nunes. And I'm not trying to disrespect. I think that'll be a very, very big moral victory that will set her up for a lot of future success, because if you can go the distance with Amanda Nunes, that's not really a loss. I mean, to you, is that like a loss if she goes the distance? Obviously on your record, but in terms of as a fighter.
Derek, that's a moral victory for men who fight in the 145-pound division.
Yeah, for real.
Like legitimately, man. Amanda Nunes is absolute GOAT, man. If Megan Anderson can make it past the third, I'll think that's a moral win. And personally, even if I was fighting Amanda Nunes, I'd be excited to make it the distance, man, because she can put, like I said, she can put men out, dude. She can put men out who fight in the 145-pound class, and a lot of people will be saying the praises of Amanda Nunes for quite a while. And if Megan Anderson can come in with the upset, that'll be absolutely shocking, man. Like you said, put that $20 in, you make yourself a millionaire.
And listen, I also I talked about this one too. One of the things that I'm personally hedging on for this one is this fight goes over 2.5 rounds. There's the odds on that are actually pretty fucking good for somebody to just go in there. It's like, come on, man. It's like, but then again, it's hard, right? It's hard to make these arguments for Megan Anderson when you just do one thing. You just look at Amanda Nunes' last 5 and you see that she knocked out Holly Holm in the first round, knocks out Cyborg in the first round, which is the craziest thing of all, and then knocked out Raquel Pennington in the 5th round. But that's one of the most impressive to me because Raquel Pennington is absolutely no slouch, and she's one of the toughest in the division. But nonetheless, that was I believe that was a bantamweight fight. But she's 5-0 in her last 5. Megan Anderson 3-2 in her last 5, and she's had trouble against Felicia Spencer. She lost to Felicia Spencer, actually got submitted, and she lost to Holly Holm, UD. And yeah, man, you know what I mean. This will be big for Glory, and it'll be big for James Krause and for Megan Anderson, of course. You know what I mean, if they can get the dub. But nonetheless, Megan Anderson, dude, she's 31 years old. She's about to be hitting the prime. So if she loses this fight, Amanda Nunes isn't going to be fighting forever, man. So Amanda Nunes gets another dub. She's like, all right, man, I defended both belts. I'm legitimately the best women fighter of all time in terms of the UFC. Maybe she vacates the belt. Maybe then Megan Anderson can then be like, okay, now that she's gone, let me get in there. The same way that Adesanya, who we about to talk about, is like, oh, well, John Jones is gone. He ain't in 205 no more. All right, man, let's go see what's up with that belt. You know what I'm saying? So ultimately, let's get the picks, man. Who are you going and why? Like it's a surprise.
Yeah, like it's a surprise, Derek. I'm going Nunes KO round 3. I do think Megan Anderson will do rather well compared to the rest of the people, but I just think, man, Nunes is one hell of a beast. And until we get proven otherwise, that's the only pick, personally. Who you got?
I'm gonna go Amanda Nunes, man, but I'm gonna go something fishy here, man. I'm going submission round 4. You know what I'm saying? I think Megan Anderson, that frame is going to be really tough to deal with, but she's going to eventually get her on the ground. And I'm thinking like a rear naked choke or something, man. Something simple. You know what I mean? Because Nunes is no joke. She got 3 submissions under her belt. You know what I mean? She can get it done. And Anderson, she's been submitted twice before, and she just got submitted against Felicia Spencer in the first round. So like I'm saying, it's there. Those long arms do work against you when you don't know how to use them properly. And I'm not accusing her of that, but nonetheless, man, Amanda Nunes, come on, you know what we're talking about. Anyways, man, let's get into this last one. The main event, man. This is Jan Blachowicz versus Israel Adesanya. 205 champ versus the 185 champ, man. And this is a crazy one, man, because Israel Adesanya is favored, minus 250 favored against Jan Polish Power Blachowicz. You know what I'm saying? And this is kind of crazy because rarely do you see the champion that moves up weight be favored in these fights. But nonetheless, Israel Adesanya, when you knock out Paulo Costa, when you get a win over Yoel Romero, you know what I mean? When you're knocking out Robert Whittaker, it's like obviously when you do your homework and you look at his fights and you see this dude's got over 70 wins in kickboxing, and this dude has gone up to heavyweight and did all that, it makes a little more sense, man. So how do you see this fight playing out, man? Do you think this goes, how long do you think this lasts? This is what I'm really interested in. How long do you think this one lasts?
I actually think it lasts past the normal 3 rounds, but doesn't make it all the way. I'm going with the round 4 end. Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit later why I think it goes that way, but I just with how talented both of these fighters are, I don't think it's going to be early, and I don't think it's going to go into an end. What do you think?
Well, I think that this one lasts as well, and the reason why, well, I mean, because it's tough, because I'm like, there's 2 ways it can go. I can see a very early finish, like the Paulo Costa, and then I can see a grinded out finish because of one trait that Jan Blachowicz possesses that Paulo Costa also possesses, but he just decided he didn't want to use it. I think he got a little too emotional during the fight. Jan Blachowicz is a BJJ black belt, dude. This dude is legit, and if you see how he can control people, if you saw the way he controlled Nikita Krylov, who was a BJJ black belt as well, and he just put him on the ground, had his way with him. His sprawls are incredible. If he can do that to Israel Adesanya, bro, it's going to be a long night. But that's the thing. It's the what if. Because has anyone else done that to Israel Adesanya? No, not even Derek Brunson. And Derek Brunson, he was literally came in with one plan. That plan, take him down, wrestle. And no, you didn't. It couldn't. Like Israel Adesanya walked out almost flawless. Like his face was like flawless after that fight, man. And that was a big one to start making that Israel Adesanya name. But nonetheless, man, Jan Blachowicz, he just destroyed Dominic Reyes in his last fight to win the championship, to win the 205 strap. I picked Reyes. I was super high. I said, there's no way Blachowicz wins this. Reyes, come on, man. You saw what he did to Jones. He's the champion. Dude got starched, man. Holy shit. That nose was, it was looking rough. It was looking rough. But nonetheless, man, I guess the question here is that Israel Adesanya, if he can make Blachowicz miss, he's going to win the fight. But if Blachowicz lands, what do you think happens?
Well, I'm glad you said the thing about the takedown, Derek, because a lot of the media is going with the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the notion of what you just said.
Sure.
Izzy's looking not to get touched. And if Blachowicz actually lands one power shot, he's going out, man. I mean, Blachowicz has that, like you said, that Polish power, and it translates. We've seen it translate a little bit to why how Yan is able to translate his power as well. Blachowicz has that same shift where he steps through and he'll throw power from both hands. Now, I definitely think that Yan needs to work for that takedown to actually get him on the ground. But if the power connects, that's where Izzy already knows that's where the danger is. You know what I'm saying? Izzy knows, like he said in his pre-fight presser, he's like, my goal out there is to not get touched once. Now, can that happen, man? 25, who would you place a bet on? 25 rounds locked in the cage. This guy gets to touch him once. This guy doesn't ever get touched. Like, that's such an unbelievable bet. Obviously, somebody's going to get touched. Obviously, it's going to happen. But is the precision going to happen? Now, like you were saying before with the takedowns, I think that's where the crux of it, Israel Adesanya, is obviously in the takedown game. And I think what Yan needs to do to show, at least get a little bit of respect, is show Izzy something he's never seen before. Izzy's seen all the striking. Izzy's seen the heavyweight power. Izzy's seen all this stuff, but he's never been controlled and he's never been put on his ass and kept there. Like you said, even in the Derek Brunson fight, man, when the guy had one thing to do, he wasn't able to do it because Izzy's so good at doing what he does. Now, let's see if he can do that, because it's a lot easier said than done. What do you think?
Well, one factor that a lot of people aren't necessarily bringing into this, and apologies because I don't have it written down in my notes. I don't even have it on the top of my head. But when Izzy fought Paulo Costa, do you remember, was that in Vegas or was that at Fight Island?
Pretty sure it was Fight Island.
So if it was Fight Island, right, Paulo Costa kind of had to chase Izzy around. This one's in Vegas. That's a small octagon, man. Blachowicz even said it himself. He was all like, yeah, we got the small ring. I'm not going to have to chase him around. You know, I'll end up clipping him or whatever. But the big story is that, what happens if Izzy gets clipped? You know, he got clipped against Yoel Romero. And if there's any dude who's going to knock you out, it's that dude who's just made out of titanium or something. You feel me? But listen, man, Blachowicz, man, he has a good shot. He has a good shot. It's 5 rounds, man. That's a lot of time. But like I said, Israel Adesanya has a knack to just make people miss, just get out of range. You saw Anderson Silva try to hit him with a beautiful flying knee to the face. And Izzy just like, nope, I saw it coming. It's like in slow motion, moved out the way, and then was like, yeah, I saw what you tried to do. No, not going to work, pal. Israel Adesanya, the thing about him is he's 20-0. He's undefeated. Obviously, that's the big claim to fame, but this dude has a lot of experience. It's not like Blachowicz has really an experience factor when you attribute Israel Adesanya's career before MMA. This dude was literally a star in his sport before MMA. Fought heavyweights, like I said earlier, 15 knockouts, never been knocked out, no subs, never been submitted, and only 5 decisions, and he's never lost a decision. So it's like Blachowicz, if it goes to decision, he's lost 5, he's won 10. You know, you don't want to leave it there. And he only has 8 knockouts. So what is this to say that Adesanya has less fights, way more knockouts than Blachowicz? You know what I'm saying? And we've seen Blachowicz, we saw him struggle against Thiago Santos. And we know, here's the thing about Israel Adesanya, and this is kind of my conclusion point on Israel Adesanya. We talk about it all the time, right? We say this thing that, listen, timing beats speed and precision beats power, right? And what's the thing that Israel Adesanya has? Not only is he going to have the speed advantage, he's also going to have the precision advantage. And that's the thing. When he hits Whitaker with just perfect little hook to the temple and he just goes down or whatever. When he hit Paulo Costa, he barely grazed Costa and Costa was dazed, stunned, and then just got him out of there, gave him the double pump, and you know what I'm saying? Kept it pushing, you feel me? But ultimately, man, listen, I just think this is going to be a tough test for Blachowicz, being that he's not a time-tested, proven champion. Israel Adesanya, he's done it against Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa should be a 205er himself. So it's not the first time that Izzy is facing this battle. And I just think that this dude's star power and his momentum is too much. If he loses, I think this is going to be like Conor McGregor-esque level of people being shocked. Like, bro, what just happened? You know what I mean? I don't think he gets any slack for losing, especially because he's been talking all this mess like, oh, I'll beat John Jones. And if he loses to Blachowicz, I think that fight's done. I don't think that ever happened. So there's a lot on the line here. But Blachowicz, like he said, he's like, I'm an underdog and I'll just take the role. That's fine. He's been an underdog in like his last like 10 fights, and he's won like 8 of those 10 fights. So nonetheless, man, give me some conclusory, not even a word, but conclusion. You know what I'm saying? Give me some conclusion on this bout. What are your thoughts? So we can get into that fight tonight before we run out of time.
Yeah, just to wrap up my whole thoughts on this thing, I think the biggest aspect that Izzy has going for him is that precision and able to slow the game down, make his reads, and outstrike Blachowicz. And I think that's what it's going to be, man. It's going to be the Izzy Adesanya show. And if he doesn't get the win, we're going to see some crazy fallout just like we did with Conor McGregor. I think you're right. Personally, I'm going Izzy KO round 4 because I think he's going to let it dance out a little bit, show us what he's worth, and put the end stamp on the night. Who you got?
I'm going to go Izzy, man, but I got to go decision, man, because I got to respect Blachowicz, and I think Blachowicz could spend a lot of time chasing him down. Like I said, in that Romero fight, now that was really, really weird, right? Romero was just standing still, not wanting to do anything, but that's the thing. If Blachowicz isn't just pressuring him, starching him forward, Izzy has nothing to counter-strike on, then he has to initiate the offense, and he can win rounds, but I don't know how often he's just knocking dudes out just by trying to initiate his own offense. Generally speaking, he knocks you out because you're pressuring him and he counter strikes you and you don't see it coming, and then that's it. That's the end of the show. Robert Whittaker tried to walk forward, didn't work out. Paulo Costa tried to walk forward, didn't work out. All of these dudes, man, you know what the story goes. So yeah, I'm going Adesanya. I'm going by decision, man, but I will not be mad if Blachowicz wins this fight. I will not be mad whatsoever. And I think this is, like we talked about before, this is going to be the worst thing for the light heavyweight division if Adesanya wins, because now he's defending 2 belts. Now both of these divisions are being put on kind of a standstill. But nonetheless, man, those are the main card picks, man. So why don't we do this, man? Why don't we get into some fight of the night predictions, man? Give me your fight of the night prediction. Who you think? There's so many to choose from on this one, man. So like, listen, you can give me 1 or 2 if you want to.
Like you said, Derek, that's exactly what I was going to say. There's so many fights to choose from. It's going to be a hard one to pick. And I got one from the main card and one from the prelim. And you're both going to be able to see them basically back to back. But I think it's either going to be Thiago Santos versus Aleksandar Rakic, because that fight is going to be absolutely insane. Or a fight we didn't even talk about, man, the Dominic Cruz, Casey Kenny fight. Yeah. I think that one, man, that one right there, if I had to put my money on it, I'm going Cruz with the fight of the night.
So listen, that was one of mine. You know what I mean? That was it was going to be one of my sleepers, but I'm like, Dominic Cruz, Casey, that's not even a sleeper. People know who that is. So the first one for me is the featured prelim, which is Dominic Cruz, Casey Kenny, and then the other one is my sleeper, man. It's Song Yadong versus Kyler Phillips, man. Y'all don't understand. These dudes are going to be slugging it out. When you got bantamweights in there, just going, you know what I'm saying? Like it's going to be a good one, man. But we wrapped this one up just right on time. Only 10 seconds left. So folks, ultimately we gave you the sleepers, we gave you the main card picks, man. UFC 259 is a pay-per-view, but I will tell you this, man. If there's any fight that you need to buy or any pay-per-view you need to buy, this is a very, very worthy one, man. I cannot wait for Saturday night's fights, man. And listen, give us a follow on Instagram. All factors considered, man. Hit the like button, you know what I'm saying? Hit the little bell. They got this little bell, you know what I'm saying? And it alerts us every time that, alerts the subscribers or whatnot every time we drop a video, man. Check out the interview I just did with Cody Freeman. He's the American Combat Alliance's newest 145-pound champion, and he's actually trying to fight next in May to secure that Bantamweight championship, become the first AKA double champ, man. That's what we got, double champs out here. We trying to do it, you know what I'm saying? But listen, that's what we got, folks. That's it for me. And until next time, folks. Peace.